Big news for college football. Dante Moore is returning to Oregon for another year, which I think is a huge mistake for him. He absolutely would have been the number 2 overall pick in this draft, but I guess the Jets suck so bad that he had to go back another year and risk millions of dollars. But either way, that changes a lot for the NFL draft. The Jets will no longer be selecting Dante Moore at number 2. But let's get started with this mock draft anyway. The wild card round is over. Saw some really fun games there, so that changes some things up. So let's see what happens. Number 1, it's still obvious. The pick is going to be Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza is a very strong leader. I think he's going to be great for that Raiders locker room. He's a very poised passer. He's very accurate, and he's far and away the best quarterback in this draft. So I think Fernando Mendoza likely college football national champion will be the number 1 overall pick. Now it gets interesting. The Jets at 2, it would have been Dante Moore. What do they do with this now? I want to lean Arvell Reese. His stock has dropped a little bit recently, but I still think that Arvell Reese is the best gamble for the Jets to take without a quarterback on the board. Because I know for the Jets, you're not taking Ty Simpson. You're not taking Trinidad Chambliss. You're just not taking a quarterback here. Maybe at 16, I still think that's unlikely. More likely in the second or third round, we see them take a quarterback. So I think they go Arvell Reese here. Arvell Reese can play off the ball. He can play on the line. He can rush the passer. He's very versatile. He can do whatever you ask him to. And I think he has the most potential out of anyone in this draft. So I think that's a safe bet for them at 2 without Dante Moore. Now for Arizona. A guy that has really shined in the college football playoff from Miami. It's not Ruben Bain for me. It's Francis Maui Noah. If you look at the tape for Maui Noah in the playoff, he might be one of the main reasons why they're in the national championship. If you rewatch that play where Beck runs it into the end zone to take the lead in the fourth quarter against Ole Miss, look at Maui Noah on that play. He absolutely has all the traits you want in a franchise tackle or guard, even. In the league, he might play guard, but he can definitely hang at tackle. He has that instinct that you want in a tackle, and I think that has pushed him up the draft boards all the way up to the number 3 overall pick. Now for Tennessee, I'm going to stick with what I did last time for them and take Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain is another guy for Miami who's looked phenomenal in the college football playoff. I think he had like 3 sacks against Texas A&M. Just an absolute monster off the edge, and that's a guy that the Titans really need to help generate some pressure that they really need because their defense is not good whatsoever. Now at number 5 for the Giants. I'm also going to stick with what I did last time and take Carnell Tate. They need a wide receiver really bad. Wan'Dale Robinson is a free agent after his breakout year. Malik Neighbors tore his ACL and possibly his MCL. We'll see if he's the same. I'm sure he will be because he's a great player. But Jackson Dart needs some weapons. Carnell Tate is the safest wide receiver option on the board. So that's what I'm going to go with for New York. I'm going to stick, same thing I did last time for the Browns at 6. Shador needs weapons. I'm sure that they would have rather had Carnell Tate. Jordan Tyson has some injury issues that's keeping him from being higher than Tate, but I think they're really on the same level for me, Tyson and Tate. So I'm sure the Browns would be happy to take Jordan Tyson here at number 6 to get Shador some weapons. So he has some other people to throw to besides Harold Fannin. Now at 7 for the Commanders, I'm going to switch this one up a little bit. Last time I said they'd take Mansour Delane. I think that's a bit high for Delane, especially when you could argue that Jermon McCoy is a better player. But by far, the best player on defense in this draft is Caleb Downs. I think that's what the Commanders will do. I think that this is a great fit for the Commanders. Jeremy Reeves was starting at strong safety, and he's more of a special teams guy. I think Caleb Downs would be a great fit on the Commanders' defense to really get them back to where they were last season. And I think that he could upgrade that defense in a big way. Now for the Saints at number 8. I said in my previous mock draft that Delane would go at 7. I think he's going to go at 8 here. He's from LSU. He's local. The Saints could use a cornerback. And I think that Delane is probably the safest cornerback in this draft. You could go and say that McCoy is a better player, and he probably was a couple years ago. But with his injury, you just don't know. He didn't play at all this year. So I think they take Delane here, but I could definitely see them take a guy like Peter Woods to help out on that defensive line, pair him next to Brian Brzee, another Clemson guy. I could see him taking Jeremiah Love here to replace Alvin Kamara. But I really like the fit with Mansour Delane being from LSU. They could really use a cornerback. They got rid of Marshawn Lattimore, trying to replace him. They got some good guys in that room. Kool-Aid McKinstry is decent, but I think Delane would really upgrade that room. And he's from LSU, so you might as well. Now, at pick 9 for the Chiefs, I'm going to go Jeremiah Love. That's what everyone's doing, and it just makes sense. Pacheco and Hunt are just not starting running backs in the National Football League. It's as simple as that. They need a good rushing game in order to kickstart that offense. They'll likely not have Travis Kelce. Who knows if Mahomes is going to be back by week 1? And if he looks the same, I'm sure he will because he's a phenomenal player. But Jeremiah Love will really get the running game going, establish the run for the Chiefs, and see if they can rekindle that dynasty. Now at 10 for the Bengals. Probably would have wished that Caleb Downs was on the board, try to replace Geno Stone, who has been awful. But I think just as good here is Peter Woods. BJ Hill has been the only relevant defensive tackle that you've had since DJ Reader left. And Peter Woods can provide that pressure from the inside. They need a dominant force on the inside. TJ Slayton has been all right for them, but their recent draft picks on the inside, like Chris Jenkins, like McKinley Jackson, have been straight busts. I think Peter Woods can really beef up that defensive line after they lose Trey Hendrickson. Maybe they re-sign Joseph Osai, pair him up with Miles Murphy and Shamar Stewart. Even if they don't re-sign Osai, I think Murphy and Stewart are going to take a big jump this year. So having them with BJ Hill and Peter Woods could really be a decent enough defensive line for the Bengals defense to be at least competent next season. Now at 11 for the Dolphins. A guy that I really like for them here, I said it last time, I'll say it again, Spencer Fano. A lot of people think that Fano could be better than Maui Noah, and I have Maui Noah at 3 here. So I think the Dolphins would love to beef up their offensive line with Fano here. We'll see what that offense even looks like. You probably won't have Tyreek Hill. You're definitely not going to have Tua. It's going to be a really interesting team to watch next year, but I think Fano would be the pick there at 11. Now for Dallas, this is another one that just makes sense. Sonny Styles. They traded for Logan Wilson. The Bengals stole a 7th-round pick from them. Logan Wilson is not who he used to be. He's really slow. He got benched on the 2 worst defenses in the league. Kenneth Murray's really bad. They need linebackers badly. So Sonny Styles, great player, little high for a linebacker, but he's the pick there. Now for the Rams at 13, one of their biggest needs is cornerback. If Maui Noah or Fano were still on the board here, I could see them taking a tackle, but a great quarterback has fallen to them. At 13, Jermon McCoy. Like I said earlier, he got injured, did not play at all this season. But a lot of people have been saying that if he did play this season, he'd be a top 5 player in this draft. It's an absolute gift that Atlanta gave them this pick, and they land a really great cornerback from it. Now at 14 for Baltimore. I said this last time, David Bailey for Baltimore would be a gift. And I'm going to give them David Bailey again. David Bailey absolutely could go top 10. Many have said that he's one of the best pure pass rushers in this draft. Arvell Reese is more developmental. Ruben Bain could be more of an inside guy in the league, but David Bailey is for sure an edge guy. The Ravens need defensive line. They traded away Odafe Owe this season to the Chargers, and I think that getting David Bailey here would be an absolute steal. Now for Tampa Bay, one of their biggest needs is edge, and I see Keldrick Falk. That's who I gave him last time. I'm going to do it again. Keldrick Falk is super athletic, maybe not the best pass rusher at the moment, like a guy like David Bailey, but he's pretty similar to a guy like Shamar Stewart. Super athletic, developmental for sure, but I mean, we've seen Shamar Stewart take some leaps at the end of the season, and I think he's going to be a good player. I think Keldrick Falk is going to be a good player, so that's a good pick for the Buccaneers at 15. Now for the Jets. At number 2, they picked Arvell Reese. I was considering giving them a guy like Carnell Tate at number 2, but I think with the wide receivers in this draft, I think taking a wide receiver at 2 with a guy like Reese on the board would be silly, because you can find a guy like Mekhi Lemon at 16, and I think that that's a great pick for the Jets here. Adonai Mitchell has been good for them. Garrett Wilson was hurt this year, but he's a great wide receiver for them. And whoever is playing quarterback for the Jets needs weapons. Mekhi Lemon, little undersized, but he can go up and get the ball like he's 6'5". Now 17 for the Lions. This is an interesting pick. They could go a lot of different ways here, but one that I really like is Caden McDonald. They signed DJ Reader a couple off seasons ago. Lions fans on Twitter really hate that guy. And honestly, he hasn't been great for the Lions, and I think that they need another second option besides Aleem McNeil. And Caden McDonald, I've seen him sliding up draft boards, even into the top 10. And I think that he would be a great pick for the Lions to beef up their interior of their defensive line. Now for Minnesota. I really like this fit for them a lot. Avion Terrell. Really great cornerback at Clemson this year. I've had him penciled in there from the start. And Minnesota needs cornerbacks. And Avion Terrell is right up there with Jermod McCoy and Mansour Delane. And after that, the fall off for the cornerbacks is quite heavy. So I think the Vikings are pretty lucky to get him there at 18. Now for the Panthers. I'm going to stick with Cassius Howell for the Panthers. They drafted Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. He's been good for them. Take a gamble on another Texas A&M edge rusher to really complete that defensive line, as they haven't really had a really elite guy off the edge since they traded Brian Burns. So I like that pick for them at 19. Now for Dallas. Dallas, I think, really would have wished that a cornerback like Avion Terrell or even Jermod McCoy fell to them here, but they didn't in this situation. They took Sonny Styles earlier, but there's another good cornerback on the board, not at the level of Terrell or McCoy or Delane, but I like him a lot. Teammate of McCoy, Colton Hood. That's what I gave him last time. I'm going to stick with it. I think that it might be a little bit of a reach here, but they did lose Trayvon Diggs to the Packers, and I think they need a cornerback. Why not? Now for the Steelers at 21. Aaron Rodgers in that playoff game got rocked by that Texans defense. Their offensive line wasn't very good, and I think they're going to want to upgrade that. Broderick Jones hasn't been great for them. They lost Dan Moore in free agency to the Titans a couple of years ago. So a guy I'm looking at is Caden Proctor. He's huge. You could play him at tackle, but more likely a guard in the league. His skill is in question, and he's certainly developmental, but I think he could definitely be good, especially at guard in the league. And the Steelers could play him that way and hopefully beef up that offensive line. For whoever plays quarterback, it's probably not going to be Aaron Rodgers, but we'll see. Speaking of people that got beat up, Justin Herbert got absolutely rocked by that Patriots defensive line in that sort of blowout. They only scored 3 points. And you have Rashawn Slater, who was out for the year. You have Joe Alt, who was injured. But the interior offensive line is not good. Ione's right there. It only makes sense. Now for the Eagles. Early exit for them this year after winning the Super Bowl, not going back to back. I like Caleb Lomu for them here. Lane Johnson is very old. He's still one of the best offensive tackles in the league, but I think you need some insurance for your right side of your offensive line after he retires. Guard is one of their needs. Could you play him at guard over Tyler Steen? Sure. But I think that they're going to draft him for insurance for Lane Johnson. Now at 24 for Cleveland, they drafted Jordan Tyson earlier in this draft, so you don't really want to take a wide receiver like Denzel Boston here. But I think what they do is continue to build that defensive line. They drafted Mason Graham at number 5 this past year. Myles Garrett obviously broke the sack record. But the opposite side of Myles Garrett, you don't really got much. And in the first round, taking an edge is never a bad idea. And TJ Parker, I think, is a good play in this spot here because TJ Parker, after him, you got guys like LT Overton, like Romello Height, but not much else. So I think TJ Parker's the play here. Now for the Bears. Defensive line's their biggest need. Their interior defensive line is aging. Gervon Dexter isn't the greatest. Caleb Banks is right there. It only makes sense. Now for Buffalo at 26 and 27 for the 49ers. These are two teams that need wide receivers really badly. Buffalo absolutely lost the gamble on the Keon Coleman experiment. Denzel Boston is a guy that kind of mirrors Keon Coleman in terms of size and skill. I think Denzel Boston's going to be a much better player than Keon Coleman, however. It's either between him or KC Concepcion for me here. But I think that the Bills are going to go with Boston because that fits more of the build that they're looking for. as I took a guy like Keon Coleman. He's probably not going to be on the team next year, if I had to guess. So they're going to replace him with Denzel Boston. And like I said, the 49ers need a wide receiver as well. Brandon Ayuk is getting out of town. They lost Debo. Jawan Jennings is a good wide receiver, but he's not a wide receiver one. Ricky Pearsall, same for him. So KC Concepcion here. Now for the Texans. They looked really good against the Steelers. I think that they have a chance to make it all the way to the Super Bowl and maybe even win the Super Bowl. But as for what they do in the draft, it's a little tricky. But I think they go edge. And a guy that has really stepped up in the playoffs is Akeem Messidor. He's 25 years old, or at least he will be by the time next season starts, but he's been a great compliment to Ruben Bain for Miami. So I think it's worth taking a shot for Houston here to get some more bodies in that edge room. Now for the Rams at 29, I think that they're a team that has a chance to make a big run. Maybe we'll win it all. Stafford's looked great this year. We'll see what happens with that. But a guy that I really like here, and I said last time, was CJ Allen, and I'm going to stick with that. I like CJ Allen a lot. He's definitely the second best linebacker in this class after Sonny Styles. But as for a lot of players in this class, and especially in the first round, it drops off heavy. There's not many blue chip players in this class, and there's really not many great players in this class whatsoever. It's one of the weakest draft classes I've seen in a while. So if the Rams want a linebacker, it's important to grab him in the first round. So I'm going to go with CJ Allen. Now for the Patriots. Drake May's offensive line hasn't been great. Their right tackle, Trent Brown, is aging. And a guy that I like here is Monroe Freeling. Monroe Freeling is a guy from Georgia, huge, athletic. He reminds me of Amarius Mims from Cincinnati, and Amarius Mims has been a great pick for them. He could be on the All-Pro level very soon here, and I think Monroe Freeling fits that archetype, and I think it's a guy that the Patriots will really want after he's rising up the draft boards. Now for Denver. This one's pretty simple. Evan Ingram has not been good for Denver. They need a real tight end. Kenyon Sadiq ranked 10th on Mel Kiper's draft board, which is kind of excessive. He's not that good, but he's far and away the best tight end in this class. We'll give him to him. It only makes sense. Now for the Seahawks at 32, last pick in the first round. I think that they're going to go safety here. Obviously, they're not going to get Caleb Downs, but I think they go safety, and I really like Dylan Thieneman. I think that he is going to be great in the league. I think that the Seahawks would love him to replace Kobe Bryant, get another body in that defensive back room. And yeah, we'll take him. So that's the end of the first round. I cannot believe that Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. That's just crazy to me. Why he would choose not to take all that money, especially in a draft class next year that's way more stacked. But this is my second edition of my mock draft. I figured I would do this today.